I guarantee that every Washington Commanders fan on the planet would rather have Lawrence Jackson.
It's being on this show.
1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%.
Okay.
This is, as a Commanders fan, this is our Independence Day.
It is Independence Day.
This is our Independence Day.
Another film from 1994 with Shawshank Redemption.
Right.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
All right, welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry. I am Jay Croucher. It's noon on Peacock, Matthew Berry, but it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Absolutely. Drink up, kids. Drink up. You know why? Because the Washington Commanders are for sale. Maybe, possibly, hopefully. Here we go.
Unbelievable. What a turn of events. It's a 3-game winning streak for the Commanders. They're riding high. Plus 400 to make the playoffs. It's all happening.
Yeah, it's all happening right now. I got excited about it. A lot of Commanders fans excited about it. Shout out to my buddy PFT commenter who talked about like this is one of the greatest days in his life. I mentioned that was a top 5 day in Washington sports fans history. And you know who else got excited? My friend and former colleague, Robert Griffin III.
What's up, people? Just want to give you a quick update on everything that's happened since I put out the tweet about wanting to be a minority owner of the Washington Commanders and also bring 10 fans along for the ride, and they don't have to pay anything. So I've had a lot of conversations and taken a lot of phone calls from people who are interested in being a part of this minority ownership group. And I have to say that we just got our first $100 million offer to be a part of the group. This is not a game, people. This is real life. I need you to hit the phones. I need you to call somebody and keep making noise so that the team gets sold, because this team deserves an ownership group that is as diverse as the city that it represents. I'm talking about a 3-time Super Bowl champion, a storied franchise, and I did not bring the city the championship that I wish I could have. But at the end of the day, it would be a dream come true to be a part of an ownership group that brings the city the winner that it deserves. Let's go.
Go. There we go.
And this is Robert Griffin III. This is his tweet. Who wants to be a minority owner of the Washington Commanders? I'm down to pay for a stake in the team and bring 10 fans along for the ride. And there's Matthew Berry.
That's my reply. Yo, I'm in. What's up? What's up, RG3? How you doing? How we doing? And those are some of the other quote-unquote celebrities, some more famous than others on that list. But right, you know, Kevin Durant very famously is a Commanders fan, as is Dale Earnhardt Jr., as is Wale. Like there's McConaughey, Matthew McConaughey's a big fan as well. So, and then there's like me and PFT commentary. Yeah.
It's not working out so good for Kevin Durant on the Brooklyn Nets at the moment. So maybe full-time, let's just go all in Commanders.
I will tell you that I interviewed Kevin Durant on my old podcast because I did a celebrity fantasy football league and he was in it. He's a big fantasy football player, KD is. And he said one of his dreams when and he's a man of massive wealth, not just from his basketball playing acumen, but also his business acumen. He has invested in a number of very successful startups, some of which have had huge exits as well. And so kudos to anyway, KD has said, he specifically said he wants to own a professional football team, the Commanders, and that's his hometown team. So, so anyway, we'll see. I will tell you that, I slid into RG3's DMs. He replied back to me. We're in conversations. I personally have reached out to every billionaire I know. It's not a long list, I got to be honest with you. But I know a few, and I've been like, yo, hey.
What a turn of events. Remember when you've been losing, getting blown out by the Cowboys and the Eagles, and now could end with Matthew Berry owning the Washington Commanders.
I just want
with Robert Griffin III.
0.00001%. I'm happy to be last on the cap table. In fact, I'm going to have to be last on the cap table because I think this team is going to go for $6 billion with a B. So it's going to have to be like 0.000000001%, and I may have shortchanged myself a few zeros I need in there, but either way, yeah, I'm in. So anyone listening, watching, if you need a guy as part of your ownership group,
Matthew Berry,
hit a brother up.
Let's jump into Rotoworld headlines.
I just hope. I will say there are some people that have thought this is about him trying to get cash infusion for a minority, he's going to sell a minority portion of the team, that he would still, meaning Daniel and Tanya Snyder, that they would still own the majority of the team, and that they're just looking for a cash infusion to try to get money to build a new stadium, as they have so far been unsuccessful in convincing any government to work with them in terms of using public funds to build a stadium in either Maryland, Virginia, or the Washington, D.C. area. I hope that's not the case, but I know some people have floated that as well. I will say this, it feels the most real it ever has, that there is a chance that there could be a ownership change in terms of the majority ownership of this team.
Indeed.
So we will follow this story closely.
Yes, we will. Okay, let's jump to the first headline, which is Jonathan Taylor. He's had this troublesome ankle for the past month or so now. He did not practice on Wednesday. He didn't play that badly against the Commanders. 16 carries, 76 yards, just didn't get in the end zone, as he hasn't for much of the season. What are you doing with the Jonathan Taylor situation? I assume Deion Jackson just needs to be rostered everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, 1,000%. I mean, Deion Jackson, I tweeted this out yesterday, right? I mean, look, it's not a great schedule. You don't love the matchup on the road at New Orleans. They're, top 12 against the run over the last 4 weeks. Having said that, just, massive workload for Deion Jackson in the 2 games that Jonathan Taylor missed, right? Over 17 touches, over 90 total yards, 20.6 fantasy points per game is what Deion Jackson averaged in weeks 5 and 6. And so, with Nyheim Hines now in Buffalo, there's a 12% target share. There's almost 7 touches a game that are up for grabs here. Now, Deion Jackson's production in the passing game came with Matt Ryan under center. Sam Ehlinger is now the starting quarterback of the Colts. So we'll see, if he's going to be dumping off as much as Matt Ryan is. Ehlinger more mobile, so he doesn't need to get rid of the ball. He's got other ways to, avoid pressure that Ryan did not. But yeah, I mean, I think he must be rostered, because this is an aggravation of the same injury that he's had previously, JT's.
Yeah, I think that if Jackson is the guy, then he's basically a locked-in RB2. I think you said the other new team, Jonathan Taylor and the Colts, if Taylor is playing, they played the Patriots this week.
Yeah, did I not say that?
I thought I said New Orleans.
Sorry, I meant New England,
so
yes.
The Patriots, they are 5.5-point favorites in that game, and yes, they've been a bit better against the run, but overall in the season, they haven't been great. So I think that Deion Jackson must start if Taylor misses. Let's talk about Cordarrelle.
They don't have really anyone with Hines gone. Like, it's just right. I mean, like Philip Lindsay, like whatever. I mean, like it'll be the Deion Jackson show in Indy if Jonathan Taylor misses time again. The fact that he missed Wednesday practice, it's still a Wednesday practice, but it is an eyebrow
Also
raise.
Not good that he had to leave the game on the weekend against the Commanders, then comes back in. These high ankle sprains, they just tend to linger.
Yeah, they really do.
I mean, a different injury, but Irv Smith with a high ankle sprain out 8 to 10 weeks, you'd see the toll that it can take. Let's go to Cordarrelle Patterson at Atlanta. He was designated to return to practice.
I think it's Cordarrelle. Or is this one of your Renaissance?
I don't think I can get away with the Australian pronunciation on that. I might just be saying it wrong. It's like Devonta and Devontae Smith. I feel like society's completely split on Devonta, and so everyone just goes with what they want and they ride with it.
Is it the fantasy football version of the gold dress versus the black dress? You remember that whole internet thing that was going on? Blue dress versus the gold dress, right? Exactly. Anyway, I believe it's Cordarrelle Patterson.
Cordarrelle Patterson.
Yeah.
So he returned to practice, and he hasn't played since week 4. But in his 3 full games, he produced like a madman. But now he's got Caleb Huntley, Tyler Algier to compete with. Is Patterson startable if he's back this week?
I think he is. He told reporters he feels about 90% there. Over the last 4 weeks, there's only one team in the NFL that's giving him more rushing yards per game than the Los Angeles Chargers. And so it's a good matchup against a team, with a team in the Atlanta Falcons who wants to run. It does not matter what the score is. It does not matter what down or distance it is. They're going to run. They're going to keep running. And so Cordarrelle Patterson, who earned 18 or more touches in 2 of the 3 full games he played so far this year, will lead that committee. You'll see some Tyler Algier and some Caleb Huntley. But yes, my expectation is if you start a Falcons running back this weekend and Cordarrelle Patterson is active, Patterson is the guy you want. Remember, over the last 4 games, Falcons, 137 rushing attempts.
Yeah,
137 in 4 games.
Yeah, I think we're in this world now where previously you would look at, okay, the Falcons are underdogs or whatever, and you expect game script to get out of hand. Now there are like multiple teams who just run the ball independent of game script. The Titans do it with Derrick Henry. Obviously the Falcons, the Bears do it as well. They're just going to run the ball because that's their offense.
And I think the Texans are going to do it tonight against the Philadelphia Eagles, because that brings us to another quick headline here. I'm going out of order here for a second, Stephen, but I don't want to blow that amazing segue that I just did.
Can't
which is that
segues.
Reports coming out just before we went on the air that Brandin Cooks unlikely to play tonight for the Texans. He hasn't practiced all week, Jay. And we already know Nico Collins is not going to play. Yeah. So may I just quickly read to you the wide receiver depth chart for the Houston Texans. Chris Moore, Philip Dorsett, Tyron Johnson, and Bo McDingleberry. One of those guys I made up.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, it's a pick-em betwing Bo McDingleberry and Tyron Johnson.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not ideal.
But so my expectation here is that with going on the road at games in Houston, but just playing a very good Eagles defense that has just smothered every team they've played, and now it's a passing offense in Houston that has been inconsistent this year, to be kind.
Yes.
My expectation is that what they've got going for them, Dameon Pierce, and a lot of it.
We'll talk about some BetMGM props later in the show, but Dameon Pierce, 65.5, his rushing yards over under 15.5 carries. I think they both sail over even if they're losing.
And teams have been able to run on Philadelphia.
Yes,
we saw the Cowboys do it a couple of weeks ago as well. Last 4 weeks, believe it or not, the Eagles 25th against the run. And so I think you see a heavy dose of Dameon Pierce tonight. So they would be another team like the Titans, like the Falcons, that are just going to run regardless of game script, because they just don't have a ton of confidence in their passing attack.
Another wide receiver injury, Keenan Allen with his niggling hamstring. He did not practice Wednesday, and here's Keenan Allen on that injury.
Got to take it day by day, and when it's ready to come back, it'll be ready, and I'll be ready. I'll stay ready, and when I can play, I can play.
Some weird stuff swirling around Keenan Allen, saying he got worse during the bye, saying also before the bye that he kind of didn't really he wanted to wait through the bye, and it's just, these injuries should not linger like this, and really it's been the entire season for Keenan Allen. So what are we doing with the Chargers situation?
I mean, we're starting Josh Palmer, like friend of the podcast, Austin Eckler, during the definitive Austin Eckler interview right here in the Fantasy Football Happy Hour, said as much. You want Josh Palmer. Big Mike Williams, he's not going to play for a few weeks as it stands today, as we broadcast this on a Thursday afternoon. Doesn't feel great. Bad vibes, as you will, coming from Keenan Allen in the Chargers camps about his availability. And so you think about this matchup against the Atlanta Falcons, who Atlanta is 32nd against the pass over the last 4 weeks. Like, literally no team in the NFL gives up more passing yards per game over the last month than the Atlanta Falcons as well. A.J. Terrell, once again, likely out for that secondary in Atlanta. And there's a 20% target share that's up for grabs. Before we even get to Keenan Allen, Mike Williams vacates a 20% target share. We expect a lot of work for Josh Palmer. In the 7 career games in which he's gotten at least 6 targets, Josh Palmer has over 13 fantasy points in 6 of those 7 games here. You'll see some DeAndre Carter as well in this, and I like Gerald Everett as a tight end sleeper this week. But yeah, give me Josh Palmer as a top 25 wide receiver with Keenan Allen out. I think he becomes almost a must-start if both Allen and Williams are out.
Yep. Falcons.
And by the way, he makes the love list.
Yes. Falcons secondary extremely banged up, so he should be able to feast. All right, let's jump into running back love-hate, but first, let's hear from Ramondre Stevenson, who features at the top of the list.
Ramondre, what's the significance of the jersey?
This is Booby Miles from Friday Night Lights, my favorite movie, so I had to rep him today.
Yeah. What led to that? Just something fun?
Yeah, just something fun. I love the movie. That's my favorite movie, top 5 for sure. So just had to put it on today.
Have you watched the series?
I did. I like the movie better though.
You do?
Yeah.
Ramondre Stevenson with the, I would say, controversial view that the movie Friday Night Lights is better than the TV show. I would go the other side of that. It is funny, and obviously it's a little meta, but the fact that he referenced that In season 3 of Friday Night Lights, Matthew, J.D. McCoy and Matt Saracen, they had this quarterback controversy where the coach was starting both of them and they would alternate series. Bit of a Bailey Zappi, Mac Jones type situation where a film becomes reality. And I don't think Ramondre was alluding to that so much, but he is on the love list. He's trending right up. And what do you like him this week?
Clear eyes, full hearts can't lose, Jay Croucher. Clear eyes, full hearts can't lose. Love the Boobie Miles jersey. And I love me some Ramondre Stevenson. 6 consecutive games here, Jay Croucher, with at least 16 touches and over 80 yards from scrimmage. He's averaging over 20 fantasy points per game. He's my running back 9 so far in week number 9 as well. Even since Damian Harris returned, it has still been the Ramondre Stevenson show with a 26% target share. He's had 131 receiving yards, 15 receptions over the last 4 weeks. You think about this matchup with the Indianapolis Colts, right? Indy is giving up the 6th most rushing yards per game to opposing running backs, whether it's Bailey Zappi or Mac Jones, and the expectation obviously is that it'll be Mac Jones under center. The fact is this is a run-heavy team, and Ramondre Stevenson has the majority of work in this backfield for the Patriots. We talked about it in the preseason. I've never wavered from this as well. Ramondre Stevenson is a special talent, and he's the guy that you want in this Patriots backfield. I had him ranked ahead of Damian Harris, which was unlike the opposite of the ADP coming into the preseason. All in on Ramondre. Must start.
Yep.
Must start this week. Must start going forward.
Particularly with how bad Mac Jones has looked all season long. He's been one of the 5 worst quarterbacks among NFL starters and has 5.5-point favorites still against the Colts. Expect that they'll be running all day. Let's jump to Travis Etienne, who has now become the clear RB1 in Jacksonville with James Robinson gone. He's producing like an RB1 in fantasy as well the past 2 weeks. Why is he on the love list?
Yeah, I mean, he not only is he on the love list, but I mean, he's even higher than Ramondre Stevenson. We just didn't have video of Travis Etienne in a Boobie Miles jersey, so we flip-flopped it a little bit. But he comes in as a top 5 running back for me, running back 5 for me in week 8. Look, over the last 2 weeks, without, over the last 2 weeks, over an 80% snap share, 84% of the team's running back touches. James Robinson, now a member of the New York Jets, in his first game without J-Rob there, 27 touches for Travis Etienne, 4 consecutive games with over 100 yards from scrimmage. And you love this matchup against the Raiders, right? Las Vegas allowing 115 scrimmage yards to a running back in each of the last 2 games. So Etienne, who's been such a big part of their offense going forward, and the trade of James Robinson. Look, we like JaMychal Hasty, like nice little player, but like he ain't Travis Etienne. Like this is his backfield. We constantly look for bell cow running backs. They're so few and far between in fantasy, Jay, and Travis Etienne is one of them.
Yeah, I'm not sure there are 6 more guys you'd want in fantasy at the running back position more than Travis Etienne the rest of the way. When Calvin Ridley gets there next year with Travis Etienne, Trevor Lawrence is going to have no more excuses if he doesn't perform, which he hasn't so far. Let's go to Aaron Jones, who's about the only good thing in the Packers offense at the moment. He really got going against Buffalo, despite the fact that they were losing the entire game, the Packers, and he's on the love list this week.
Free Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones, look, there's not much that's working in Green Bay, right? There isn't much. I mean, look, the cheese is still good. I hear good things about the brats.
You like the brats?
Yeah, and I just hear good things about them. I'm not a brat guy.
I'm a big cheese curd guy. I spent a bit of time in Wisconsin, yeah. Yeah,
Wait.
me and producer Stephen, we actually went to a Brewers game and devoured some cheese curds at the Ryder Cup trip last year. It was fantastic. Huge on cheese curds.
Really?
Really
wow.
good thing about
Stephen
America.
D'Agostino in my ear saying he can confirm.
Yeah, he can confirm. And big on Brussels sprouts in America and cheese curds. 2 things we don't really do in Australia. No, anyway.
Whatever. By the way, that sounds like a bad children's show, Brussels sprouts and cheese curds. Here's what I can tell you, though. One thing that you should like just as much, if not more, than Brussels sprouts and cheese curds is Aaron Jones, especially this week. He comes in at running back 6 for me as well. Look, since week 2, this is a guy who's averaging over 17 touches a game over the last, and honestly, so much about the Packers offense isn't working, but he is, right? I mean, you saw the massive game Sunday night against the Buffalo Bills as well, and that was against the Bills. Now he gets Detroit. Lions over the last 4 weeks allowing 131 rushing yards per game to opposing running backs. That's 3rd most in the NFL. They're giving up over 95 scrimmage yards to a running back in 5 of the 7 games they've played so far this year. He's a big part of the passing game. They want to run with him as well. I don't know why they don't seem to love A.J. Dillon, though he got going a little bit more. But if there's one thing you can trust in this Packers offense, week in, week out, it's Aaron Jones. Him against Detroit, come on. get better than that. Running back 6 for me this week.
Yeah, I like it. I think there's this idea that maybe the Packers' passing offense will finally get right against Detroit. It's not going to get right. If it was going to get right, it would have gotten right against your Commanders or other teams along the road. There just isn't the talent and the production out of the receivers, and Aaron Jones is the guy who should benefit the most. Let's quickly jump into some others receiving votes, headlined by the great D'Onta Foreman.
Now, he got a veteran day off yesterday. Chuba Hubbard returned to the lineup, so it remains to be seen if he's going to get the massive kind of workload that he got with Chuba Hubbard out last week. But still, like, he's going to, after what he did last week, you expect him to at least lead this committee against a Bengals defense that's giving up the 9th most rushing yards per game to opposing running back. He comes in at running back 17 for me. Foreman does. We already talked about the Packers game. Well, let's talk about the other side of that ball and Jamal Williams. DeAndre Swift did not practice yesterday. In the 4 games in which Swift has been active this week, even if Swift is active, Jamal Williams has been productive, averaging 17.6 fantasy points per game in the 4 games DeAndre Swift has been active. No player in the NFL has more goal-to-go carries than Jamal Williams. And Khalil Herbert, right? I kind of like him.
My man.
He's had over 70 scrimmage yards in 3 straight games. He's had 43% of the team running back touches over the last 2 weeks, compared to just 49% to David Montgomery. This is truly a split down the middle committee. This offense has shown signs of life under Justin Fields, and we think Herbert is the better running back, Jay. He's averaging 6.4 yards per touch compared to just 4.7 for David Montgomery.
Yes, and David Montgomery highlights the hate section of this operation, and so I presume that that's basically just with how Khalil Herbert is trending, how he performed against Dallas. It seems like Montgomery's probably trending the wrong direction.
David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert is a perfect example of what the love-hate list is because, yes, Khalil Herbert makes the love list on others receiving votes. Montgomery makes the hate list. And yet, if you go to my rankings, I have Montgomery 2 spots ahead of Khalil Herbert because love-hate is all about expectations. I think Herbert has a better game than he's expected to. I think Montgomery has a worse game than he's expected to. But if I was rostering both guys, I would still start Montgomery more. He's running back 23 for me. Herbert's 25. Look, he's had only 4 more touches than Khalil Herbert over the last 2 weeks. He's had under 50% of the Bears' running back touches. And this is not a great matchup against Miami as the Dolphins allow the 8th fewest rushing yards per game to opposing running backs.
Yep, I like that look. And the Bears are 5-point dogs at home to the Miami Dolphins. I might like Chicago in that spot. I just think the Bears, they're trending in the right direction as a team. We'll see what happens with the pass game because it has been the pass game is a weakness.
They just added Chase Claypool. So what is the line again?
Bears +5 at home to Miami. I'm not sure Miami have earned the right to be 5-point favorites at Chicago. Chicago team that's been offensively.
Chicago is tough. That's been better offensively. I kind of like that call.
Yeah. Bears +5. Let's go Bears. Now, let's talk about
your Bears. You love your Bears.
I'm a Titans man now.
Right.
Yeah, because of Derrick Henry and my Offensive Player of the Year bet at 30-1 on BetMGM. Let's talk about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a staple of the hate list. Yeah, he's on here again.
Well, he's facing your Titans. I mean, you know this, Jay. Like, the Titans are a really good run defense,
yes, we always
right?
have been.
Right. Over the last 4 weeks, they allowed just 42 rushing yards per game and under 3 yards per carry to opposing running backs. This is a committee. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Isaiah Pacheco, and even Jerick McKinnon, who's actually been the guy who's led the Kansas City backfield in snaps in 3 straight games. Like, so you're talking about a committee, a 3-headed monster against a very tough run defense, the number 1 run defense in the NFL over the last month. Yeah, I mean, he's outside my top 25 CEH as well. Honestly, if you're looking, I would still start CEH over this guy, but just as long as we're talking Chiefs, Titans, I just want to mention real quickly, Dontrell Hilliard, if you're truly desperate, sort of interesting here. He's actually second on the Titans in both target share and receiving yards, and the Chiefs have allowed the most receiving yards and the most receptions to opposing running backs this year. So Dontrell Hilliard could be kind of a sneaky deep league start. I'm desperate. I need a guy that, could get me 8 points with a chance at a touchdown.
Yeah, mustache as well. Derrick Henry, limited participant in practice with that foot, which isn't ideal, particularly when he's had 28 carries a minimum the past 3 weeks. With that workload, you're always a little bit concerned about King Henry, though the production doesn't go away. All right, we're going to go to break. When we come back, pass catcher, love, hate, headlined by shock, horror, a Washington Commander.
Hey now, I hear they're for sale.
We got the Vikings coming up. We understand what they've been doing on the offensive side with the guys that play the position you play. But defensively, they can compose. They'll pose a challenge too. What do you feel like this offense has a chance to do against the Vikings defense coming in this week?
Yeah, we're gonna have to sustain drives. I think if we could do a better job of sustaining drives, converting on third down. I think we're a great offense when we do that and we don't shoot ourselves in the foot. You know what I mean? I think our defense did a great job giving us some turnovers, and as offense, I think that's our job to make sure we turn that into some points. Anytime you get to go against any great players in this league, you want to have a good showing. So I just want to go in there and do whatever that my team asks of me this week and try to come out here with a dub.
And we can trust you to do that, man.
Yeah.
The Washington Commanders hour rolls on.
Yeah,
trying
to get ourselves a dub, but I mean, I'm telling you, listen, I think they got a shot. Maybe I'm looking at the world through burgundy-colored glasses, but I think they got a shot.
I'm with you. I would be taking the Commanders plus 3.5.
Yeah.
It's actually starting to trend towards 3.
It was 2.5. It was 2.5. I've seen it at 2.5, and now it's trending towards 3.5. Yeah.
I don't think that's right. I don't believe in Minnesota. They're not. Yeah, they're a good team.
They're not a 6-2 team.
No, they're like the 9th or 10th best team in the league.
Yeah.
They're fine, and they've played a pretty easy schedule. And it's not like the Commanders are the hardest line on the schedule, but still playing the right way. Defense is looking better as well.
Defense is looking better, and there's still a few players on that team that know how to attack Kirk Cousins, and
Yeah.
So we'll see. Anyway, we'll see how it all plays out.
Jump into pass catcher love hate, headlined by that man, Terry McLaurin, who's on the love list.
Honestly, back in the day, Santana Moss was on the love list a few times, especially whenever he played Dallas. Santana Moss always killed the Cowboys. But I think Terry McLaurin kills the Vikings. He comes in at wide receiver 11 for me. Since Taylor Heineke took over, he's got a 26% target share, Terry McLaurin. Find somebody who looks at you the way Tyler Heineke looks at Terry McLaurin. He's had over 16 fantasy points in both games, and over the last 4 weeks, the Vikings allowing the 3rd most yards per game to opposing wide receivers. We know the Vikings offense is pretty good. My expectation here is that they're going to put up points, so they're going to have to throw against Minnesota. Vikings also, by the way, a pretty good run defense. They're second against the run, so I think the way Washington moves the ball in this game is through the air, and that starts with Terry McLaurin.
Yep, Terry McLaurin. I think he's back. He was top 25 wide receiver last season. I think you just project him as that basically going forward with Taylor Heineke, who is an upgrade for him over Carson Wentz. Let's talk about the revived DJ Moore, who was a staple of the hate list. Now he's flipped. He's come across enemy lines into the love list with the magnificent P.J. Walker as his quarterback.
That's right. Yeah, 3 words. P.J. Walker.
There you go.
Former XFL superstar, now fantasy monster, P.J. Walker.
NFL superstar.
Look, he is to DJ Moore what Taylor Heineke is to Terry McLaurin. In the 3 starts that P.J. Walker has had, DJ Moore has a 36% target share. 36% target share. He's now had back-to-back games with over 19 fantasy points, and the Bengals losing Awuzie for the season to the ACL. That's going to hurt that secondary, right? Trey Flowers left last week with a hamstring injury as well. They're so beat up in the back end of the secondary as well. And so I think just the volume that DJ Moore gets, plus his talent, and the fact that Cincinnati is hurting, makes him a top 20 play for me. He comes in at wide receiver 17.
Yeah, look, I normally like to get deep into the numbers, the analytics, look at DVOA, all that type of stuff. But with this, it's just simple that PJ Walker does stuff, and Baker Mayfield didn't do anything. And PJ Walker, he's moving around. He can clearly throw deep. That pass went 68 yards in the air or whatever to get to DJ Moore in the end zone. And all of a sudden, this team just has life. And DJ Moore is the big recipient of that 159 yards.
PJ to DJ.
Yeah.
Boom.
Exactly. They are trending in the right direction.
Somebody should make a T-shirt about that.
I don't think they will.
Oh, I think they will.
Yeah, you think they will? You think
what else do they have?
Go on the Commanders and get that T-shirt done?
Yeah, probably I can already see it, right? There's like a big J, and there's like the P and a D, and it's P to D, right? Because PJ to DJ.
Carolina Panthers, another good vibes team.
That's
all these
right.
teams revive from the bad vibes. The Commanders, the Panthers.
Keep pounding.
The Chiefs have had good vibes all season. Juju Smith-Schuster, who's had at least 8 targets in 4 of his past 5 games. And he is the Chiefs wide receiver 1 these days.
Yeah, look, I know everyone was all excited about Kadarius Toney, and he'll be active likely for this game, but my expectation is that Juju Smith-Schuster, who's finally starting to come on, right? He's had at least 8 targets for the last 5 games, back-to-back games with over 110 yards and a touchdown, and he gets the Titans on Sunday night right here on Peacock and NBC. I'm a company man. Tennessee, bottom 8 in the NFL in terms of catches and yards allowed to wide receiver. They've also given up their top 5 in the NFL in terms of most touchdowns allowed to wide receivers. Like, if there's no safer bet, right, than Andy Reid off a bye.
Yes.
And so guess what? Andy Reid this week off a bye. They've had 2 weeks to try to work even more on some of the momentum that Patrick Mahomes and Juju Smith-Schuster have together.
Yep. The thing with the Titans as well, outside of my man Derrick Henry, who is their greatest strength, but also they have the #1 rushing defense by DVOA in the league. They're very, very hard to run on. We saw Damian Pierce, who'd been running all over the league, 15 carries, 35 yards. So I think that they will be throwing in the ball, the Chiefs. Let's jump to Evan Engram. It was not necessarily a name I was expecting to see, but gets into the end zone in London and seems to be trending in the right direction.
Yeah, 3 of the last 4 games, he's had over 20% target share, with at least 40 yards in all 4 games from Trevor Lawrence. Over that stretch, he's the tight end 7 in terms of a points per game basis, averaging 12 fantasy points per game. It's a good matchup with the Raiders as well. Vegas allowing 6 different touchdowns to tight ends this year. That's tied for the 3rd most. Evan Engram back in the top 10. Welcome back, Evan Engram. He is my tight end 7 for the week, and you see right there on your screen the target share. Only the Week 7 game against the Giants, where he had a 16.3% target share, has he been under 21%? And even in that game against the Giants, he still had 67 yards.
Yeah, it's been a winding fantasy career for the great Evan Engram. Some real ups and downs. I still don't understand why the Jags are an underdog at home to the Las Vegas Raiders, +1.5 on BetMGM. Makes no sense to me. People still keep buying the Raiders. They're not any good. Let's jump into some others.
They're not, and this is this West Coast team traveling east. Yep. I don't think it's a 1 o'clock game.
Jags do come back from London, which is what you worry about a little bit. That hurts, but at the same time...
That's a team that's used to it.
Yeah, you know what also hurts is that the Vegas Raiders, they didn't cross midfield on offense until 3 minutes left in the 4th quarter against the Saints. That's bad.
When Josh McDaniels is apologizing to the fan base, that's also bad.
Yes. I think we might be done with Josh McDaniels based on how the Denver stint ended and now what's happening in Vegas.
I don't know. I mean, like, when I think about the times I've had to apologize to the fans, it's always because I've completely crap the bed. You know what I mean? Like when, I recommended Allen Robinson in the preseason. Like, that was a bad one. And so what I do, I came on air and I made a mea culpa. I apologize. I screwed up.
What's your biggest ever miss?
Oh, God.
Is it like, did you declare like Arian Foster one year and then you got hurt or something?
No. I mean, like, the one I'm most famous for is Michael Vick, saying Michael Vick number 1 overall in 2011. I weirdly don't think that's...
the dream team?
Yeah, I don't think that was. I don't think that was my biggest miss. That's my most famous miss by far. That's the one people always throw at me, or that comes up all the time.
To throw that at you.
It's the most famous miss, but I don't think it's my biggest miss because I've had much worse calls that have worked out much poorer than that. I mean, Allen Robinson's right up there. I mean, the guy's barely a top 70 fantasy wide receiver.
He's trending in the right direction.
And I was all in on him in the preseason. It's a good question. Let me know what you think my worst call is. Tweet at CroucherJD. No, I don't want to hear it, but Jay does.
I'll sift through and find the best of your worst.
But, I mean, like, whatever. Everyone had Michael Vick as a top 10 play that year, and Michael Vick wound up being a top 10-ish quarterback on a points per game basis. Like, he wasn't the number 1 overall player, but he was usable. You know what I mean? Like, when he was active, and it's a easily replaced position. I don't think it's my worst call. It's definitely my most famous bad call, though.
Yep. My worst call, while we're talking worst calls, I loved the Rams in the Super Bowl against the Patriots, +2.5. Thought it was free money. Could not believe that the Rams were underdogs to that offense, which was really struggling in New England. And then I remember that I was taking Jared Goff against Bill Belichick. And
Tom Brady.
And Tom Brady. It didn't go great. All right, let's jump into some others receiving votes for the pass catcher love. Headlined by the guy we were talking about earlier, Josh Palmer.
Yeah, I mean, look, Palmer gets. We talked about him earlier. I just think he's somebody that should get a huge target share with Mike Williams and potentially Keenan Allen out as well. You see Tyler Boyd on your list there as well, who's had 3 straight games with at least 12.5 fantasy points. No Jamar Chase against the Panthers, who allow the 6th most catches per game to the slot where Boyd runs a lot of his routes. Romeo Doubs now has a 20% target share or better in 4 of the last 6 games. Detroit allowing a league-high 4.1 deep completions per game. Why does that matter? Because last week he had 4 deep targets. Like, Aaron Rodgers trusting him on sort of those deep throws. And, hey, somebody has to catch the ball for Baltimore. So Devin Duvernay comes in, who's had a 17.5 target share over the last 5 weeks, and he's had 3 different games with multiple rushing attempts. We will see if Mark Andrews plays in this game, but even if he's active, he might be limited because he's still a little bit banged up. Ravens had the bye after this week, so you could see some Isaiah Likely, who had a 43.5 target share. 43.6% of the Baltimore targets this year have gone to opposing tight ends. So it's an offense that likes to target the tight end as well. And so Andrews and Isaiah Likely, both beneficiaries as well. 19.7 fantasy points last week.
Yep.
Notwithstanding, looks the part.
Yes, he does look the part. Highest ever graded college tight end by PFF. And this Saints team, notwithstanding the fact they just did pitch a shutout, it's not the same defense that it was last year. They've still got some injuries. And the total in that game is 48. So expecting there will be a lot of scoring.
Yeah.
Let's jump
Saints are pretty good against the tight end. So, I mean, I'd feel a lot better about Likely if Andrews was out. But I do think even in the deepest of leagues that if you're...
It just doesn't seem like Andrews is going to get the full pitch count if we keep talking pitches. I don't think he'll be 100%. Let's jump to the hate list, headlined by Michael Pittman.
Yeah, he's now had under 60 yards in 4 out of 5 games so far this year, and it's not a good matchup with the Patriots as they've allowed just 4 touchdowns, 4 all year long, to opposing wide receivers. That's tied for the 3rd fewest in the NFL. Sam Ehlinger, kind of a mixed bag, showed some mobility, but also showed kind of like, oh, that's why he was the backup.
Sam Ehlinger-ness.
Some Sam Ehlinger-ness. Certainly didn't have a great – Michael Pittman did not have a great game last week as well. So Pittman, who's normally locked in as like a top 12-ish wide receiver, comes in at 23 for me, just outside my top 20.
Yep. Brandin Cooks was on the hate list, but now he's going to put up zeros guaranteed because he's not playing tonight. So let's go to Dawson Knox, who also has really underperformed this season.
He's had 1 game this year with a target share above 13%, right? He is truly like the definition of a touchdown-reliant tight end. In games in which he doesn't score this year, Jay, he's averaging under 7 fantasy points per game. By the way, the Jets, your beloved Jets, have yet to allow a touchdown to an opposing tight end.
Yep. That's a tough secondary. It's a tough...
and so you're just like, here's a guy that's touchdown dependent playing a team that has yet to give up a touchdown to an opposing tight end. Like,
yep. Bills are 13-point favorites in New Jersey for that game.
Dawson Knox is tight end 15 for me this week.
Don't expect they'll be throwing too much. All right, we're going to go to break. When we come back, quarterback love hate, headlined by my man, Justin Fields.
We're walking in as boys, coming out as men. Hey! Hey! Make sure you get a close-up of that. Hey! I see you. Don't come out. Hey! 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 I thought you was fake. Shark head. Hey! Hey, what I tell you about the knife, dog, man? Put the knife gotta go down. Sure. You cut the head off already. Oh, we made it? All right, good. Get out here, man.
Spooky indeed.
That was 3 of the Los Angeles Chargers walking through a haunted house. You strike me as someone who scares easily, Matthew.
Easily.
Bit of a fraidy cat.
I hate haunted houses. I hate horror movies.
I would have called that.
1,000%. Don't like any of it. Just never got into it. Don't enjoy it. Don't enjoy being frightened.
Yeah, you don't enjoy the sensation of fear? You're not a fear guy?
No, I have plenty of things to fear in my own actual real life that I don't need to seek it out.
You know, artificial fear on a cinema screen?
No, exactly. Like I forget the name of the movie. But there's some movie that my wife wanted to go see desperately, and I think it was a Jake Gyllenhaal movie where the premise of the movie is that him and another dad in the neighborhood, their daughters get kidnapped in essence, basically.
I don't like that.
Right, and their daughters get kidnapped, and they're like, oh, it's supposed to be great. And I'm like, that's my nightmare.
Yeah.
Like, I have daughters.
Yes.
That's my nightmare.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, why do I want to go see that?
I think you might be talking about Prisoners with Jake Gyllenhaal and Hugh Jackman.
Is that the one where, like, and I'll ruin this one. I don't care. I'm going to ruin this one. Like, the old lady, like, it's an old lady. I'm going to ruin Prisoners because no one should see it because screw that. Don't stop.
It's a really good film. I wouldn't do this, and it came out this century as well.
Yeah, I don't care. This one I'm going to ruin. I'll be the bad guy here. Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Well, I won't say where they find. But
I know, but they get found. Yeah,
they get found.
Jake Gyllenhaal has the Aaron Rodgers 2022 haircut.
Yeah.
As Detective Loki.
By the way, the whole thing is like that. That's like it makes my that's my nightmare.
Yeah.
Like anything involving kids and
That's not
it's
good. I don't like
it's
that.
awful.
I can't watch that kind of stuff anymore either. But I think, I'm even more against the the physical
What's
fear.
entertaining about that?
No, that's dark. The film that really got me, it's not really a horror film, but Black Swan.
Okay, I never watched
with
that yet.
Natalie Portman.
Yeah.
There's like a sequence where she's losing her mind and things are just jumping out of everywhere. I was sitting in the cinema like, I'm having a horrible time. Just a dreadful time.
No.
This is not fun.
No.
Fear is not fun.
No, it's awful. No.
Yeah.
Like scary movies like that, or like Cats, just sort of like really make you nervous.
Yeah, well.
Cats was a horror movie.
Cats was a horror movie. Let's talk about a different animal.
Yeah, just trust me on this one.
Let's talk about the Falcons.
It's designed. If you watch it back thinking it was designed as a horror movie, it makes a lot more sense.
Oh no,
I'm just saying.
Cats is terrifying.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Yeah.
But you love
grown
Justin
people.
Herbert.
Grown people. My daughters have become obsessed with furries.
Oh really?
Yeah, with furries. Like I don't think they understand the entire context of it, but they They become obsessed with the idea of grown people dressed up as animals or in costumes, and so very specific. It's very weird.
Right, well,
I don't want to show them cats.
There's no way left to segue cleanly to Justin Herbert being on the love list. So let's just talk about it.
He's the anti-cats. He's the anti-prisoners. He's like he's something we
a
love.
Warm feeling.
Warm feeling, exactly. Yeah. Like he's a feel-good comedy. He's a feel-good rom-com, right? Like he is like.
Feels like he should be in a rom-com one day with that hair, that face. Feels like he's
with me.
With you?
With me, falling us. We meet cute, and and I drafted my team, and and then we go off.
I was thinking more like whoever the present day Kate Hudson is or whatever, but it could be Matthew Barry in a rom-com with Justin Herbert. People would definitely go and see that. Just to be curious.
I'm just saying.
What the hell's going on?
I'm putting it out there. Hey, NBC Universal, let's go. Let's make a movie.
JH.
What are we saying? All right. Justin Herbert now, just poor video guys are like, how am I going to clip this for social?
How to lose a Matthew Barry in 10 days. There you go.
There you go. Honestly, take me to see Prisoners, and then you got 9 days left.
Yeah.
All right, so here we go. Justin Herbert playing Atlanta, like I get it. You're like, wait a minute, Barry, hang on. I've been watching this whole damn show, and like you just tell me you got no Mike Williams, you know Keenan Allen, and now you're telling me Justin Herbert, who's struggled somewhat. We had Austin Eckler, friend of the show. We did the definitive Austin Eckler interview on this podcast, and even Austin Eckler was like, yeah, the offense isn't where we need to be. And yet somehow you have Justin Herbert on the love list, and the answer is yes. Yes, Jay Croucher, I have Justin Herbert on the love list. First off, you like the volume, right? 44 pass attempts per game. That is most in the NFL. He's had back-to-back games with over 50 passing attempts as well. Over the last 4 weeks, the Atlanta Falcons they're allowing over 23 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks, giving up 353 passing yards per game over that stretch. They're going to try to run the ball and do that well. Here's what's weird. The Falcons actually over the last 4 weeks, 4th against the run. They've been really good against the run. They've been brutal against the pass. So the way you move the ball against the Falcons is through the air. Eckler will be fine, but give me Justin Herbert as a top 5 fantasy quarterback this week.
Bit of rest as well for that rib for Justin Herbert off the bye, which I think will be huge. Now, Joe Burrow, his version of Prisoners, of Cats, I guess, is Myles Garrett, who's just in his face in 2.1 seconds on Monday night. Now he gets to play the Carolina Panthers, so he's on the love list.
Yeah, exactly. So, look, first off, Carolina ranks 30th in sack rate this season. So when Joe Burrow has time, he's very, very good, and he should have time against the Carolina Panthers. The last 4 quarterbacks to face Carolina all threw for over 250 yards. That includes the likes of Marcus Mariota, and a struggling Tom Brady. And so here comes Joe Burrow. who gets to face the Carolina Panthers, who allow the 7th most passing yards per game over the last 4 weeks. My expectation is that after that Monday night embarrassment, Burrow gets back on track. It's another week to figure out how to move this offense forward without Jamar Chase. Give me Joe Burrow as a top 8 fantasy play this week.
Yep. Okay, let's move on to Justin Fields, who's a name I think that we're going to be saying a fair bit on this list as the season goes on. He's
Bears
trending.
can be scary.
Yes.
Actual Bears.
Oh, I hate Bears.
By the way,
I didn't want to move to Connecticut because I was
there
told
are
Bears.
Oh yeah, we get texts from nosy neighbors look what I found in my backyard, and it's a effing bear, and you're like, well, why are you sending that to me?
My wife is Swedish, and in Sweden there's just bears, and bears just come, unload the trash cans. I'm like, this is terrifying. Why does anyone live in Sweden if there are bears?
Yeah, and you know what? And they're never, this is a helpful hint for everyone that lives in a kind of a wooded area or where bears. They are almost never like cute and cuddly bears that talk to you.
They're like the Revenant bears that ripped apart Leonardo DiCaprio's poor body.
It's never Yogi.
No.
You know what I mean? It's never like a cute cuddly bear that's just like, hey, you got some toilet paper or something like that. It's never anything like fun like that.
Yeah, they never ask politely.
Never like the Charmin bears. No.
Well,
these are mean, angry, I will eat you bears.
Yes.
The Revenant bears.
Yes. Well, talking of cute, cuddly fantasy production, Justin Fields, who looks like a top 10 fantasy QB going forward.
I mean, he's been one for 4 straight weeks. He's over the last month, he's a top 12 fantasy quarterback, 3 straight games with over 60 rushing yards and over 18 fantasy points. You see it there on your screen in terms of the total touchdowns, in terms of the game log that he's had. Really successful. And to the eye test, Jay, he looks like a good quarterback. He looks like there's still mistakes that he makes. There's still a couple of head scratchers in there, but night and day from where he was last year or at the beginning of the year. It's a decent matchup with the Dolphins, who've allowed the 4th most yards on deep passes this season. And obviously Fields leads all quarterbacks in deep ball rate. Darnell Mooney going to get deep for 1. We expect Miami to have no issues scoring against the Bears. So, yeah, give me some Justin Fields as a viable top 10 play this week. Again, everyone was just like, oh, he's playing the Cowboys last week. What a great defense. Well, I'm like, well, but he's still going to run around, and that's what he did. He still had a huge game against the Cowboys in a losing effort. You and I both think, and by you and I really mean you, but I'm tagging along. I'm tailing you on this one.
Yeah.
I like the Bears +5. I like that call at home.
Still plus 1,500 to make the playoffs in the NFC. It's not crazy. Commanders are tied for the seventh spot in the playoffs, so why not? Let's go to some others receiving votes, headlined by a guy who looks pretty ready to just star in the Revenant instead of play football, and that's Aaron Rodgers, but he gets a pretty nice matchup this week against the Lions.
Over the last 4 weeks, no team in the NFL has allowed more yards per attempt than the Detroit Lions. They're giving up a 79% completion rate as well. And by the way, take out Bailey Zappi for a second, and without the Bailey Zappi game, the Lions are giving up 24 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. If ever there was a game for Aaron Rodgers to get on track and be the Aaron Rodgers you drafted, it is this week against the Detroit Lions. He comes in at QB 12 for me. Real quickly, I also like Trevor Lawrence against the Raiders. Every single QB that's faced Las Vegas this year has scored at least 17 fantasy points. They've given up passing touchdowns, the 2nd highest rate over the last 4 weeks. And how about my Taylor Heineke?
Yeah,
come on, man.
Heineke.
Yeah, exactly. QB1, baby. Taylor Heineke, right? It's not always pretty, but he's a little bit gutty. You don't mind the matchup here against the Vikings. They've given up over 290 passing yards per game over the last 4. Heineke, in his 2 starts this season, he's averaging 18.3 fantasy points per game with over 30 pass attempts in both games. That's not a fluke. We know the Commanders like to throw a lot. We expect the Vikings to be able to score points in this game. Yeah, give me Taylor Heineke as a sneaky sleeper. He comes in at QB 15 for me this week.
It's unbelievable that team is 4-4. It feels like they're 1-7.
It really
feels like they're 1-7.
They're
4-4. They have a better record than the Rams, who won the Super Bowl last year. It's unbelievable.
Them apples.
Yeah.
How about them apples?
Let's go to the hate list.
By the way, they should be even better because they should have won that Detroit game.
They could have lost some games along the way too. They could have lost to the Colts. They could have lost to the Packers, but they do have their 4-4
and the Bears.
And the Bears. They really should have lost to the Bears.
Right, they should have lost all of them. But whatever. But they should have beaten the Lions.
Yeah, who's counting?
They had no business. They
should be 5-3.
They had no chance against the Cowboys or the Eagles. But whatever. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let's jump to the hate list. Headlined by a guy, again, who is a recurring character, the underperforming Derek Carr.
It's weird that you would add Devontae Adams to somebody's arsenal and he would go down, but that's exactly what's happened. Derek Carr has regressed.
Yeah. We need to feature Hunter Renfrow more.
I mean, it's unbelievable. Like 4 straight games with under 250 passing yards and 35 attempts, under 35 attempts. I mean, they're handing off to Josh Jacobs all the time. And this is not an easy matchup against the Jags, right? They're a top 12 pass defense so far in both yards per attempt and touchdown rate for the year. They've allowed multiple touchdown passes only twice this season, 1 or fewer in 5 of 7 games so far this year. This game is in Jacksonville. West Coast team traveling east. Yes, you're right. Yes, the Jaguars are coming off of London as well. But I don't know. There's nothing about Derek Carr's production or what you watch on film that makes you feel like, oh, yeah, they're about to turn the corner.
Yeah.
Like my feeling is that with him struggling, they're just going to hand it off to Josh Jacobs even more. He's outside my top 15 for the week.
Yep, Jags don't have a great rushing defense. To be fair, they don't have a great pass defense either, but this certainly feels like a Josh Jacobs game. He's been the only thing that goes right on that offense. Nothing going right on the Rams offense at the moment as they drop to 3-5 now, actually, the Rams. And Matthew Stafford is on the hate list.
Yeah, he has. How many games do you think he's had this year with multiple touchdown passes? This is a guy with Cooper Kupp on his team.
Yeah, I would say 1 off the top of my head.
He's got 1.
There you go.
That is exactly. He's got exactly 1 game with multiple touchdown passes this season. That was week 2 against the Falcons, right? Now he faces Tampa Bay. And in terms of both yards per game and yards per attempt, Tampa is a top 6 defense, right? I mean, there's a lot that hasn't gone right for the Buccaneers, but the Buccaneers are actually playing pretty good defense so far this year. They're the 4th best pass defense in the NFL over the last month as well. And there's only been 3 quarterbacks this entire year that have scored over 17 fantasy points against the Rams, I should say. And the reason they've all scored 17 or more fantasy points against the Buccaneers this year, they've all had 30-plus rushing yards. We're not expecting Matthew Stafford to have 30-plus rushing yards. So again, like I butchered that a little bit, but basically, here's the thing: the only 3 quarterbacks that have faced the Buccaneers this year to have 17 or more fantasy points all had at least 30 yards rushing in their games. We're not expecting that from Matthew Stafford. He's my QB 21 for the week. No, thank you.
Yeah. You drop Matthew Stafford? You comfortable dropping him?
In a 1 QB league, in a 10 or 12 team 1 QB league, yes. Like, I'd rather have Justin Fields the rest of the way. Like, I'd probably rather have, he's on a bye this week, but I'd rather have Daniel Jones. Like,
would rather have Marcus Mariota than Matthew Stafford or Derek Carr? Because I think at this point, I might. I mean, Mariota just the upside.
Not Derek Carr, but Mariota, sure.
Yeah. No, I'd rather have Mariota than Carr or Stafford.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Just because the upside with the legs, and also the fact that they're 4-4 now, and they're not gonna bring in the Desmond Ridder show anytime soon.
I'd rather have Taylor Heineke and Carson Wentz. I'd rather have the Commanders quarterbacks.
Yeah.
By the way, the numbers are there. Yeah, it's not pretty.
On that note, we have to go to break. We absolutely have to go to break.
We may not come back. NBC may cancel me for that
when we come back Thursday night football player props from BetMGM. Not going to be a great game, but we'll give you reasons to watch. The action never stops at BetMGM. Sign up now using bonus code BERRY, and your first wager is risk-free up to $1,000. Simply download the BetMGM app today or go to betmgm.com and enter bonus code BERRY, B-E-R-R-Y, to make your first wager risk-free up to $1,000. It's risk-free. There is no risk. Matthew Berry, as we look at, in last call, some of the most bet on props on BetMGM.
Yeah, by the way, when you go to betmgm.com, use the promo code BERRY for a free $1,000 risk-free bet.
I just said that. Yeah.
Well, I know you did, but sometimes they cut the videos without that in there. So I'm making sure it's in there.
Double up.
Yeah,
right.
I'm doubling up.
Miles Sanders to score first touchdown. This is one of the most popular props on BetMGM. That's plus 650. Anytime TD score, Miles Sanders plus 105. And then one that I think that we both might like, Davis Mills under 217.5 passing yards, minus 115.
By the way, with Brandin Cooks being ruled out, that number is already lowered. Like Lily said, we built that graphic before the show started, and just in the last hour, it's now down to 214.5 passing yards. I think I'd still take the under.
I think it's still going to go further down.
1,000%. Houston scored at least 20 points. Houston scored at least 20 points in all 4 games where Davis Mills threw for over 200 yards so far this season. But he's been under 160 yards in 2 of the last 3 games. Eagles 4th in pass defense so far this year. I don't think he gets to this number here, right? By the way, no. I'm taking the under. I'm taking the under on this game. It's 45.5, right? Houston's 29th in scoring offense, 31st in yards per game, and that was with Brandin Cooks playing here as well Unders are 5-3 on Thursday Night Football as well. So give me the under on 45.5. Give me the under on Davis Mills, 214.5 passing yards.
Yep, both teams love to run the ball. More bleeding clock. I think it goes under 45.5 as well. My best bet is Dameon Pierce. It's going to be a lot of Dameon Pierce tonight. His longest rush, over 15.5 yards. Just needs to get to 16 yards once. He's done that each of the past 5 games. He's going to have a lot of opportunities to do it tonight, even if game script goes against them. Also, don't think Jalen Hurts throws a pick tonight. The no on Hurts throwing a pick is minus 185. I still like that, even with a lot of juice. He's only thrown 2 picks all season, and he's not going to need to throw a lot tonight.
Fair enough. By the way, Eagles are 25th against the run over the last 4 weeks. So you can run in Philadelphia. Yeah. So there's a chance that Dameon Pierce breaks a long one here. I like that bet. Hey, listen, it's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. So good luck on Thursday Night Football tonight. Love Hate now out on Rotoworld.com for free. Check that out. For Jay Croucher, I'm Matthew Berry. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, okay, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.